My girlfriend told me, "You're not enough." That one sentence destroyed everything. For her, that sentence has been replaying in my mind for weeks, not because it broke me, but because of how calmly it made everything click into place. I'm Ethan, 31, and until recently, I thought my relationship with Emily, 29, was solid. Not perfect, not magical, but stable. The kind of stability you build after 3 years of living together, sharing routines, planning futures quietly tucked into late night conversations. I wasn't prepared for how fast stability could turn into a battlefield. It began with something small, or what I assumed was. Small Emily started pulling away, not obviously. Just subtle things, late nights at work, vague explanations, new clothes she claimed were on sale, makeup on days she usually didn't care. She was distracted, distant, constantly glued to her phone. I knew something was off, but I didn't push. I believed in giving space. Maybe that was my mistake, or maybe it saved me. Everything detonated on a Thursday evening. She came home late again, the smell of unfamiliar perfume mixing strangely with the air as she walked past me without a greeting. I remember sitting on the couch, laptop open, work forgotten the moment I saw her face. She looked conflicted, like she was about to deliver news she had been rehearsing. She didn't sit down. She didn't stall. She just exhaled and said it. "You're not enough for me anymore. I need more, something different." Just like that. No anger, no build-up. Just a cold declaration. My first reaction wasn't heartbreak. It wasn't even confusion. It was a terrifying, perfect calm, the kind you only feel when a truth finally catches up to you. I asked her what more meant. She didn't give me details, but she didn't need to. I could read the guilt in the way she avoided my eyes, and the practiced detachment in her voice. She had already moved on emotionally. Her body language said it long before her words did. The next morning, the real blow landed. While she showered, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A preview popped up, a short message that turned suspicion into certainty. "Last night was incredible. Same place tonight? No name, no emojis. Just confirmation." I didn't unlock her phone. I didn't need to trespass into her privacy. The truth was already more honest than anything she would ever tell me willingly. I left for work early that day, partly to avoid the confrontation, partly to breathe before deciding what came next. But the universe didn't wait. That afternoon, while scrolling aimlessly, something caught my eye. A tagged photo of a couple at Emily's office party, people laughing, people drinking, and in the background, blurry but unmistakable, Emily leaning in close to a man I recognized from her department. Her manager. A married one. The same man who had been helping her with late projects. Suddenly everything aligned. Every excuse, every late night, every emotional shift. Not only had she cheated, she'd chosen someone who already belonged to another woman. I spent that night in silence. Not sadness and silence, like my brain was reorganizing itself around a new reality. By the time Emily came home, smiling faintly like nothing had happened, I already knew 2 things. She wasn't ready to confess. But she would. Because secrets like hers always implode, I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I simply watched her. The way she avoided eye contact, the way she kept her phone face down, the way guilt made her overly affectionate, as if she could soften the blow she hadn't delivered yet. She thought she still controlled the story. She had no idea she'd already lost it. What I didn't know then was how deep her betrayal went, or how much darker the truth would get once I finally uncovered it, because saying "you're not enough" wasn't the end of her confession. It was the beginning of a collapse she never expected. The day after Emily dropped her "you're not enough" confession, something in our home felt permanently shifted. Not visibly, not loudly. But the silence between us had a weight, like the air itself was holding its breath. I didn't ask her anything. I didn't confront her. And that scared her more than yelling ever could. Cheaters expect chaos. They expect accusations, breakdowns, begging. Silence? Silence is the one thing they can't decode. And I used that to watch her unravel. That morning she made breakfast, something she hadn't done in months. She placed the plate gently on the table, almost ceremoniously, as if an omelette could erase months of lying. I thanked her. Calmly, politely. She forced a smile, but her hands shook slightly. Because politeness was not forgiveness. And she knew it. Throughout the day, I noticed her checking her phone with the kind of paranoia only guilt creates, face down, away from me. Notifications cleared immediately. The message I had seen, the one from her secret, had changed everything. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew enough. Someone else had already replaced me. The truth arrived faster than I expected. That evening, while she showered again, her phone vibrated on the counter. Not a text this time. A call. His name flashed clearly on the screen. Mark. I recognized the name instantly. He was her manager, married, older, the kind of man who never looked at his wife in photos but always placed a hand on her shoulder like a prop. The call rang out. Then again. Then a text. We need to talk, tonight. It was the kind of urgency that comes from fear, not passion. Something had gone wrong in their little fantasy. But I didn't touch her phone. Didn't scroll. Didn't snoop. I simply memorized the moment. When she came out of the shower and saw the missed call, she froze. Just for a split second, just long enough for me to confirm what I already knew. She wasn't thinking about me. She was terrified of losing him. The next 2 days felt like watching a theater production where the actress forgot her lines but kept performing anyway. Her lies suddenly became overly detailed. Too detailed. Every hour accounted for. Every errand justified. Every action narrated like she was building an alibi I hadn't requested. Guilt made her predictable. That's when the bigger truth started revealing itself. On the third night, she fell asleep early, exhausted from the pressure of living 2 lives. Around midnight, I got up for water, and something on the kitchen counter caught my eye. A receipt, crumpled, barely visible. A hotel. 2 nights earlier. 2 guests checked in. 1 room, and the signature at the bottom. Mark's everything inside me went still. She hadn't just cheated emotionally. She hadn't slipped once or been swept away by confusion, the excuse cheaters like to use when they need to soften the word betrayal. No, she had planned it. Scheduled it, coordinated it, lived it. She had built an entire second relationship right under my roof, but the worst part wasn't the cheating. It was realizing how many times she had come home after being with him, smiling, laughing, washing his scent off her skin while telling me, "I'm tired. Long day." All the nights she said she needed space. She was giving that space to him. All the weekends she stayed late at work. He was waiting in his office. All the times she said I wasn't enough. She'd already decided someone else was, but even that wasn't the end. 2 days later, the truth expanded into something darker, something neither of them had expected. A message came in while she was in the shower again. Not from Mark, from his wife, 1 sentence. "I think we need to talk about our partners." My heart didn't drop. There was no panic, only clarity. Emily thought she had control of the situation. She thought she had power because she held the secret, but she had underestimated one thing. Secrets don't stay buried when the person you cheated with is married. Married people break faster, and when they break, they expose everything. Emily had lit the match. Mark added the gasoline, and now his wife was standing in the doorway holding a lighter. The collapse had officially begun, and none of them realized I had been watching the entire structure crack, quietly, patiently, waiting for the perfect moment to step aside before it all came crashing down on them, not on me. The message came early in the morning, long before the sun had fully risen, sharp, cold, and perfectly timed. It was from Mark's wife. "We need to talk about what they've been doing." I stared at the text for a good while. Not because I was shocked, not because I was angry, but because everything was finally falling into place the way it always does when cheaters get sloppy. I didn't answer right away. There was no need to rush. People who cheat eventually destroy themselves with their own carelessness. All I had to do was stand still and let the truth come to me. That evening, after Emily fell asleep in the bedroom, I sat alone in the dim light of the living room. She looked peaceful, too peaceful for someone who detonated a 3-year relationship like it was a firecracker. I finally messaged back, "We can meet. You choose the time." 2 minutes later, she replied, "I'll tell you everything you deserve to know." There was no drama in her message, no emotional flair. Just a woman who had lived with betrayal long enough to speak plainly. We met in a small cafe where no one would recognize either of us. She was already there when I arrived. Lily looked exhausted, in a way sleep couldn't fix. Eyes red, posture stiff, fingers brushing the strap of her purse like she was holding the last piece of her patience. She didn't cry. Didn't tremble. She just looked. Don't bother explaining what happened, she said. I already know more than you think. Her opening line cut through the air. She unlocked her phone, slid it toward me, and I realized she had everything. Photos, messages, receipts, timestamps. All organized. All undeniable. And that's when it became clear. She knew about the affair before I ever suspected it. According to her, Mark and Emily had been involved for at least 6 months. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This wasn't a mistake. This was a second relationship built behind our backs, with structure, with planning, with rules. They had coded messages, specific meeting spots, a schedule that fit between our lives like a parasite. People think their partners are clueless, Lily said quietly. But the person who lives with them always knows when something is off. She told me that when she confronted Mark, he tried to throw the blame on Emily. Said Emily pursued him. Said Emily threatened him if he stopped. Funny enough, Emily gave me the exact same lines about him, 2 liars. Same script, same excuses. Lily wasn't buying it either. They're not victims, she said. They're partners in this. Then she hit me with the question that made everything go still. You know she's pregnant, right? I nodded, calm, too calm. Lily nodded back, her expression shifting into something colder. Well, she said, here's the part you don't know. She pulled out a folded piece of paper, an appointment confirmation, a prenatal consultation that had been scheduled. Weeks before Emily ever told me anything, the date matched perfectly with the day Emily told me she needed space to think about the future. She wasn't thinking about anything. She was preparing. Lily looked me dead in the eye. They were planning to leave us. She just panicked and admitted everything before Mark had the chance to spin the story. The weight of her words didn't crush me. It clarified everything. This wasn't just betrayal. This was strategy. This was a long, calculated exit plan that blew up early. And then Lily said the last thing that sealed the coffin shut. I didn't come here to fix anything or beg for forgiveness. I came to tell you that you're not alone in this, and the truth is uglier than you realized. We ended the meeting without promises, without emotional bonding. 2 betrayed people don't need a pact. They need answers so they can finally move forward. When I got home, Emily was still asleep, curled up like a child who had never told a lie in her life. But as I looked at her, it felt like watching a stranger occupying a familiar space, and it hit me like a quiet revelation. This story wasn't over, but from this point forward, I would decide how it ends. After meeting with Lily, everything inside me shifted. The anger didn't vanish, the betrayal didn't soften, but it settled, quiet, cold, and razor-sharp, like the moment before a door closes for the last time. That night I went home earlier than usual. Emily was sitting in the living room, her posture small, her eyes swollen from days of crying. She looked like someone who had spent too long bargaining with consequences she thought she'd never face. But none of that moved. Me people only fall apart when they realize the reality they built on lies can't hold their weight anymore. I didn't shout. I didn't demand explanations. I simply told her what I knew. Every message, every meeting, every planned escape route she and Mark built behind our backs. I told her Lily had shown me everything. She didn't deny it. She couldn't. She looked at me with a kind of panic that wasn't about losing me. It was about losing the comfort, the safety, the life she assumed I would always provide. I told her she needed to move out. Not immediately, but soon. I wasn't throwing her into the street. But she no longer had a place in a life she tried to replace. She asked where she was supposed to go. I told her that was no longer my responsibility. While she packed, I began stripping the house of everything that belonged to us. Photos, decorations, gifts, quietly gathered, boxed, removed. No smashing, no dramatic gestures. Just slow, methodical removal. It felt less like revenge and more like clearing a burned room after a fire. Smoke gone, structure gone, only empty space left behind. When the day came for her to leave, she didn't look at me for more than a second. That one look was a mixture of regret, fear, and disbelief, like she still expected me to crumble. Her final apology didn't matter. That message weeks ago, "I'm pregnant, but it's not yours," had already ended everything long before she understood it. The door clicked shut. The house fell into complete silence, a silence that didn't feel empty. It felt clean. For the first time in months, the air wasn't thick with suspicion or second-guessing. It was just me, alone, steady, and finally free from the illusion that had been collapsing for far longer than I realized. As for Mark, Lily updated me a few days later. The moment Emily had nowhere to go, he panicked. Not because he cared about her, but because he was terrified of losing his marriage, his stability, his image. The kind of man who cheats is almost always the kind who fears consequences more than guilt. He tried begging Lily, made promises, blamed Emily, claimed he was confused. Lily didn't flinch. She'd lived in the shadows of his betrayal longer than I had, and she wasn't going back. Emily went to him after leaving my house, but he pulled away instantly. Their connection only existed in secrecy, in stolen moments. Real life, real consequences, real responsibility. Those things killed whatever fantasy they thought they had. She messaged me one last time. "I'm sorry. If you ever want to talk, I'm still here." I didn't respond, not because I hated her, but because the version of us she remembered was gone long before the truth came out. The real ending isn't when someone leaves. The real ending is when you look at them and no longer recognize the person you once planned a future with. A month passed. Life stabilized faster than I expected. I slept better, hearted better, worked better, reconnected with friends I'd unintentionally drifted from. Lily and I exchanged updates every now and then, not as two people trauma bonding, but as two survivors who didn't owe each other anything except honesty. There was no romantic spark, no sudden new chapter, just mutual respect and closure. Sometimes that's the healthiest ending. Emily drifted into the mess she created. Mark fought his own battles with consequences he tried to outrun. And I walked forward, not because I was stronger than them, but because I didn't let their chaos reshape who I was. She destroyed everything in a single morning with a text. I rebuilt my life with silence. And in the end, silence was louder than anything she could have said.